Good morning, crafty friends. Happy Saturday. Welcome to Stamp and Create with Beth. I'm Beth Roy, an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today, for our Saturday Coffee and a Card Live, we are going to talk about coloring the oranges from the citrus blooms. So I'm just going to pull up my video here. Say good morning if you pop in. Also, if you're new to hanging out, say good morning and let us know where you're watching from. Good morning, Dad. Good morning, Jenny. So I'm just going to give it a few minutes to see if my notifications go out and everyone can pop on. So today I am going to color this image from the Citrus Blooms stamp set. And this is part of the Mediterranean Blooms suite. I was just trying to see. Oh, there it is. Trying to see what I did with my catalog. So you'll find the couch. Well, Dad, I'm glad you have a comfy spot. So the Mediterranean Blooms are on. It starts on page 34 of the annual catalog, and it's a whole suite of products. You have your stamp set, the dies, which we are going to use one of the dies today, and these gorgeous opal rounds, and then it has the Mediterranean Blooms Designer Series paper. So I have just a little bit of the Designer Series paper, and we're going to do a lot of coloring today. So that's the products we're working with. I am going to be coloring with Stampin' Blends. Good morning, Maggie. And Jenny, you're watching from the couch too. So I wanted to show you two other cards that I made. I did lots of practicing with the images. So here's all my little die cuts that I did. Lots of practicing. This was the very first one, and I tried a different leaf coloring technique. And so this is the first one that I did, and then here's some of the other ones. So I have lots of oranges ready to go for cards. Good morning, Linda. Oh, Linda, you got to travel a little bit. Good morning, Vicki. Thank you. So I showed you guys some sketches, and I wanted to show you what I did with those first. We're going to make a little bit different card, but this was the freshly made sketches, and this was my interpretation, so I did post that. And then this is the one that the Stampin' Up! Posted, two of their layouts from the annual catalog, and this was the one with the circles, and so this was my interpretation of that. And I used a little bit of Designer Series paper. You can add texture. So when you see a sketch, you can really have a lot of fun with it. So I'm going to put these aside. Oh, fun, Linda. Well, thanks for joining us while you're visiting your family. Vicki, did you miss the die you used on the top card? On this one? So I haven't really shown you this yet, just yet. Okay, so you have not missed this yet. So I have my large image already mounted here. It's the trio of oranges. And I'm not sure if you could color this to be anything else. Do you think it could be a lime? I was curious about this the other day. I don't really feel like it definitely does not have a lemon shape, even though there are lemons in the paper. But I was wondering if it could be a lime. Because the name is Citrus Blooms, right? And citrus is more than one type of fruit. So I'm always curious. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in there. So these are the dies. So you have some standalone leaves. These cut out the flowers that are right here in the kit. And then you have a die that cuts this one and this one. And then you have some, they look like you could turn them into flowers. They're smaller flowers that mimic this, but there's no stamp. So those are called standalone dies. And then we have this die, which cuts this shape. And then we have this, which cuts a leaf border, kind of, it doesn't have an outside. So whatever size you cut this, you can use this to cut it, or you could make a rectangle and then die cut this, and it's going to look like you're looking through the leaves. And then there's this die in the very middle. I haven't taken it off yet. It's just some leaves all connected. So that is where this die comes from. So it's part of the dies for the citrus blooms. And I've already die cut that ahead so that we can just get straight to coloring, okay? Coloring, especially this coloring, takes quite a bit of time. So I'm going to do it as quickly as possible and try to give the best instruction I can. The reality is I often take a long time coloring images like this. So let me bring it up here. I'm going to pull my camera down while I color. And I tried to vary my oranges because they're not all ripe at exactly the same time. So I thought that gave it a lot more interest to vary those a little bit. So as you can see, you could make lots of different cards. Now these I just kind of played with. I didn't do any extra blending. These are just Old Olive and the Pumpkin Pie. And then the ones that I really, these were the first three I colored. These, I really tried to vary and take my time and do a lot of detail on. So let's put these away and we'll get stamping. Oh yeah, I love these dies. What is your question, Vicky? Hello, Xana. Good afternoon to you, where you are. We are going to get down to coloring. So I have my little kit here already prepped, and I do have one choice for you today. Only one. So I've made most of them because the coloring is going to take up a lot of time. I've already pre-cut this. So this is basic white, and I used that large die from the Citrus Blooms. I have a piece for the inside. And then this piece right here, I made just to add a little interest to the front of my card. It is 1 3/4 inch by 5.5. So I have 3 choices for you. When we get done coloring, we will pick which one we want to go underneath. So I have the one that I used, and then I have 2 additional choices. So be ready for that. Hello, Joan. Thanks for joining us. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, it is the normal size that we use here in the U.S. It is 5.5 by 4.25. So let's get stamping. Now I'm going to tell you all the colors I use for the stamping blends. if you don't have some of these colors, just use what you have. It's okay. Let's see. So when you stamp, your ink needs to be either the Memento Black or one of our classic Stampin' pads. So these are water-based inks. I prefer to stamp in basic gray and then color. I like the softer line. And then these are our alcohol marker line. So these are compatible. So you don't want to stamp in the Stays On in color with these because they are similar inks and they will bleed. So if you have questions about that ever, just ask and I will let you know. Oh, it made it look larger. Nope, it's a regular sized card. So I'm going to ink up this large image with basic gray. And if you want to try this, I have tried it a little bit. If you want to try more of a no line card, meaning you don't want all these lines to be really dark because you want your markers to become the color that's on the edge and in the details, you could stamp either, if you don't have a lighter gray, stamp off and then stamp, or you can use smoky slate or a lighter color. You could even use the basic beige or crumb cake stamped off to kind of give your image a no line look. So don't be afraid to test that out and try it and have some fun with it. So I'm just going to plop this on here. There we go. Oh, I didn't show you this one. This was kind of my cheat sheet. When I first got this stamp, I started stamping the image. And I did try it with, this was Grainy Apple Green and Lemon Lime Twist leaves. So if you like a fresher, brighter look. But our paper does use the Old Olive for the Designer Series paper. So I ended up going with that green for my color choice. So are you guys ready to get coloring? Are there any questions before I pull the camera down? Because sometimes once I start coloring, I don't look up as much as when I'm making a card and doing something simpler. So I am going to pull it down. Let me go through the colors real quick while I wait and make sure nobody has questions. So for my leaves and my ripening orange, I used the Old Olive blends, and I also have dark Mossy Meadow here. I've used dark Cajun Craze, pumpkin pie, peach pie, Daffodil Delight, lemon lolly, and for my background, which I'm going to let you choose today, on this one I use the ivory blend. I just wanted a soft, subtle background. It actually came out just a tad darker than I wanted, but that's okay. I think it looks fine. So if you want, we can switch this background to a blue, or we can keep it the ivory color. So that's the very last thing I do. So we will decide that last. Oh, thank you, Linda. Well, you know, I love coloring, and so I am going to pass on some of this with you. And normally I charge for these type of classes, so you guys get some of my coloring tips absolutely free today. Okay, so let's see if I can bring my camera down here. I might have to adjust a little bit while I'm coloring. So you'll just have to bear with me as I do that, okay? And I will try to do my best to make sure I am in the frame and telling you all the colors. So if I don't say something or you have questions, please type them. I will really try to pop my eyes up every once in a while and make sure that I'm not missing anything. Yeah, I love the ivory behind it. And so if you guys want to try something, that's fine, or we can keep it exactly the same. Thank you, Maggie. I I know this might seem kind of weird, but I really like the fruit. I don't buy all of it, but I really like the freshness of lemons, of citrus. And so we had one before that you stamped, and it kind of looked like you could do like a lemon or a lime or an orange, and it had the slice. We had that one that had an embossing folder, but this one, I just really like it. I don't think it can ever look like a lemon though. So I think it could maybe pass for a lime, but definitely not a lemon. So, okay, so the first thing that I do, I'm going to slide some of my markers off here so they're out of my way. I don't need them yet. I normally keep them in a little basket. So I'm going to start with my greens. And I'm going to start with my leaves first. That's just what I feel most comfortable with. So if you like to color in an opposite order, don't feel guilty if it is different from the way I do it. So what I start with first is I'm going to start with the dark, and I just pick a leaf, okay? Doesn't matter where you start. And I'm just going to kind of go in where I think it's going to be really dark. So where things kind of overlap. And I like to just do a little line on the edge where I transition. Now I am leaving some white space where the leaf vein is going to be, where I can add in my light old olive. So it's just really random. And if you don't put it exact, it's not the end of the world. It's okay. That's the point of coloring. We can adjust the color a little bit. That's the purpose of the blends. The alcohol stays, keeps the pigment wet, so you can adjust it a little bit. So I'm now using the dark old olive, and I'm just going over top of that dark Mossy Meadow, and I'm kind of filling in my leaf. Now, I liked my leaves darker. The first one I did, I left the ends a little lighter. I just really liked it darker. So I'm just leaving a little bit of white space. Can you guys see that? Where I'm going to color in my light old olive. And I'm just doing lines. And if I get too much and it looks like the little vein of the leaf is going to be too skinny, I'm not worried about it. Things in nature are not perfect. And too often when we're doing our hobbies, we're worried about being perfect. So I like how it kind of turns out really organic. It's okay if it isn't perfect. And when you come in with the light, honestly, if I haven't created enough space, I just go over it with my light, and guess what? It will blend out, and it will lighten that area. So again, I'm just doing little strokes, and I'm going all the way to the edge of the stamped image there. So I'm just kind of creating. They have little thin lines for the vein, and I'm just creating a wider margin for that. Okay. So there's the dark Mossy Meadow and then the dark old olive. And I like to choose 3 colors so that I just have a dark, a middle tone, and a light. You don't have to have 3 colors. You could easily do this with just the old olive. Sorry, I hit my camera. I was just trying to adjust my screen a little bit. So now I'm going to come in with the light Old Olive. And I'm going where all those white spaces are, and then I'm just kind of doing some lines to help blend and smooth those colors. If I blend it too much, I can always add some dark back in. Don't be afraid to adjust your image after it's sat for a couple seconds or even minutes. Sometimes I color and then I come back. So yesterday, I colored this part and these leaves in this orange, and I took a picture of it. And it sat here all day because I went and had a day with my family, and then I came back. And I finished it last night. And I'm talking probably 10 hours difference. So it's okay if this just sits. The beauty of the Stampin' Blends markers is if I want to come back and work on this after I'm done and tweak things, I can. So I can add the dark back in. I can even go over areas with the light. So if I don't like, for instance, this, I can go back over it and it's going to lighten that area. And if I do it too much, then I can come back in with my dark. I'm going to let that sit for a minute so you can see. And I do turn my image. I turn it every which way to color it, whatever you're comfortable with. I like to color in the direction that my image stamp is going. So I'm going to come over here and work for a minute. And some of these spaces are tight. And I guess I should have said this. I'm using the bullet tip end. So we have the bullet tip and the brush tip. And it is not an ultra fine tip. So you have to have a very light touch. Now you could use the brush tip end, and I have before, especially tight spaces. I have colored enough that I feel comfortable using this very tip and just barely touching my paper. If you touch down and you push too much, you're going to get a very thick line and a lot of your ink down. So I prefer this tip, and I just like to do a light touch. And you don't have to use very much of this. You can really vary what you're doing. I will come in and adjust it when I do my darker Old Olive. So I'm going to try to just finish these leaves quickly. I think I've pretty much explained what I'm doing and how I do it. So if you have questions while I'm finishing these leaves, please feel free to ask. And like I said, I will try to make sure I'm peeking up every once in a while. And hopefully my coloring does not bore you all to death. Now you'll notice when I get around my flowers, I'm making it a little darker in there. You'll see what happens when we're all done and how that pops and kind of lifts that flower up a little bit. And see, I didn't leave a vein there. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do when I get a little heavy-handed sometimes. So you guys, I know you're paying attention to me, so you're probably not wanting to type, but feel free to tell me in the comments if you snagged this bundle during the bundle sale right now. Ah, thank you, Vicki. Well, that was my thoughts on it. But then I thought that would be a lot of green, so I would have to really think about how I want to use that image. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to adjust that area in a little bit in just a minute. I'm going to let it sit for a minute because when you do this many layers, like I said, I'm a little heavy-handed. I've actually seen people color and it doesn't bleed through, but that is not, that's not the case for me. So see how this is bleeding through because I wanted to add that vein back in that I accidentally overcolored. So I'm going to let this sit for a minute and just kind of let the paper absorb it so that I can adjust it and it doesn't bleed into my orange. So when you feel like you need to correct a section, let it dry, move on to a different section and come back to it. Don't feel like you have to be in a rush. Oh, yeah, Vicki, I thought of the blood orange too, but for some reason I was thinking they were bigger. So I'm not super familiar, but yeah, I would love that. Please send it to me because you know I'm going to be playing with this. I love it. It feels like summer, and so this kind of image really, I just like to sit and color, and you've seen I've already colored a ton of them, so I have a lot of cards to make, a lot of bits for my cards. But I'm always open to the stamps kind of becoming something more. And that's what we want out of our stamps, right? We want them to be very versatile. Now I'm making this one just a tad darker. Don't be afraid to kind of vary your leaves a little bit. Like I said, things in nature aren't perfect. Everything's not the same color. So while I don't necessarily do realism coloring, I still think you can use you can use some of the ideas that we get from nature. Okay, things are imperfect. Don't beat yourself up. Just have fun in the moment with your hobby. want to clean this up just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to let it be for a minute. And you'll see, as you can see from that first leaf that we did, the color develops as it's drying and soaking in, and it's a process. So don't be afraid to just let that process kind of happen. Can you guys see what I'm doing okay? Now, I will say this, when I have to put a line back in because I've colored too much, it's going to look a little different than when I've naturally left room for it. And what I normally do is I just go back in and I blend on either side a little bit more to make it look a little more natural. Now I'm going to go ahead and adjust this up here. I don't really like how I did that, so it's okay to just take things out. All right, let's see, I have 2 more leaves. Hopefully I'm not making you all dizzy. And I usually do one section at a time. So if you don't want to do all the leaves at once, you could do a couple leaves and then one of the oranges. It's just my preference to kind of get it done. Okay. Thank you for that, love. I appreciate that. So I'm going to leave that as is for now, and I'm going to move on. So I may come back, and yes, I have not colored in all the green parts. I may come back and darken and lighten areas after I color my oranges. So for my oranges, I used probably the most colors. I used all these beautiful oranges that we have. So I like the dark Cajun Craze. It's a very dark orange, and I like to add it in just a little area. So I'm going to show you right here. I used it for some of my darker areas, but I'm not using it a lot. So I'm going to show you how I put that on, and I will show you how I did kind of this lighter one that's ripening, and then this is a different one. So I've layered colors. Thank you, Joan. Maggie, I really appreciate that. Thank you. I think it comes, and yes, you do have to practice to be able to feel comfortable with layering these colors and adjusting these colors. There are many times I've had many fails that I think, wow, that is not at all how I pictured. And it's okay to have those, because if you don't have those, you can't grow. That's just a fact. But I really believe that I try to work really hard with just paying attention to what colors we might see and thinking about what colors Stampin' Up! Has that I can use to replicate that. And I'm always happy to help if you feel stuck and you need suggestions. Just ask just about anyone watching this video that's been with me for a while. That's really what brings me joy. So with the oranges, I'm going to do this one similar to what I did. Now, guess what? They're not all going to come out exactly as they did on my other oranges, because none of them ever come out the same twice. That's just the nature of it. But I am going to put my dark color on first and then work my way to my light color. You can do it the opposite way. The order is up to you and your preference and your style of coloring. But I like to do this one because then I feel like I can continue to blend over it and soften this dark color that I want on there. Because when I first put it on, you're probably going to think, oh, she is nuts. But I promise it really works to kind of add this darker bit down here. And guess what? I'm not doing strokes. I'm doing dots. I'm kind of replicating that texture that's on the orange. And I am going to go up where this flower would be overlapping. And I'm just going to kind of dot that on. And the closer that you get together, the darker that area is going to look. So I like to just add some dots. And then I'm going to do some along here. And just a little bit. And then some where my leaf overlaps that orange, just a tad. Okay. Did you guys see? Hopefully you can see. I know my hand's in the way. I'm really close and I want to make sure I'm in the frame. So I just dotted on some of that really dark Cajun Craze. Now I'm going to go in with my dark pumpkin pie, and you can use either end that you're comfortable with. This one's fairly new, so this tip is still nice and fresh and juicy for me. So you can do small feather strokes like this to blend that out. If you're not comfortable with this end, it puts a ton of ink on. Use the other end. And I'm just going over top where I put that color. And I'm blending it. So you can do circles, you can do messy coloring, whatever you like. I just don't want to do too much on the edge because it will spread this way. This is very saturated. I just dotted on a dark color. Now I'm putting on the next color. So I'm going right along this leaf and I'm just kind of pulling that out. Okay, so I do have light pumpkin pie, so I'm going to blend this a little bit. Again, use whichever tip you are comfortable with. This one's starting to get a little squishy on me, so I'm going to use and I'm just blending. I don't want really hard lines. So I'm just blending around this. Again, if you don't have all the colors I have, you can use 2 or 3, or if you just have the pumpkin pie, don't worry about it. You can use just pumpkin pie. And yes, I'm going over those dark spots. So I went over all of it, or most of it, with the light pumpkin pie. Now here's a new color. I really love this. This is the peach pie. It's one of the new in colors. And when I thought of peach pie as the color, I really was not expecting this really beautiful orange. I don't know why, but that just wasn't the color that came to my mind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the dark peach pie. These markers are brand new, so my brush tip is really fresh. And I'm just going on over this. Now this is just a tad darker than that light pumpkin pie. But I'm okay with using the light pumpkin pie because it helped me blend my hard lines. So see, there's our orange. It has some light spots. It has some dark spots. And I'm going to let this dry for a minute because I just put 4 colors on it. So I need the paper to give this paper some time to absorb, and I don't want it to spread all over and outside my lines. I am going to come in with my green now. I have light old olive and the dark old olive. I'm not using the Mossy Meadow here. And I'm just going to kind of dab this on. To that little tiny stem. So you just really take your time, and it's okay if that green comes down into your orange. I've seen green on mine, so there we go. And I try to keep my markers, I know you can't really see this over here. I try to keep my markers in order because when I'm coloring, I'm quickly grabbing colors. And yeah, I've grabbed the wrong one sometimes and put it on there, and that makes no difference because I've just learned how to blend it out or change it to my advantage when I do that. But I like to keep my things in order over here on the side, so I feel like I can quickly grab a color and I don't, excuse me, I don't grab the wrong one. So see, I just put this dark peach pie in the wrong place, and I noticed from the lid, but you can't always go by the lid. Okay, so let's do this one over here that has Let me bring this in. Excuse me, it might be time for a coffee break. This has some green on it. It has some yellows and dark pumpkin pie. Or not pumpkin pie, I'm sorry, pecan pie. If I said pumpkin pie earlier, I meant pecan pie, or pecan. Oh my goodness. Okay, I might have you guys all confused. I meant peach pie. Peach pie, not pecan, that's a brown. The peach pie. So if I called that the wrong color, now I'm second guessing myself. I apologize. The peach pie is the new in color, and that is what helps create this look like an orange, but it's not quite the pumpkin pie darker orange. So, have I confused everybody? Or hopefully not. So, I start this off with the green. And this is just light old olive. And you can make this as green as you want. So you can make it green almost all the way down or however you want it to be. On this one, I did it a little darker. This one was a little bit darker than this one. So it really is your personal preference. The next color I used was light Daffodil Delight. And we'll see, my marker was kind of running out earlier, so we'll see if it wants to color. I've been coloring these a ton, so. And I'm just going over top that green. So I'm layering this and creating almost like a new color. I'm blending these two together. Now we need a little brightness to that yellow, and that is where the dark daffodil comes in. So this is the dark daffodil, and I'm going around my flower and the bottom of my orange. With this color. And then you can try the light peach. Okay, maybe you want to see that first and see if you like that color. Basically, when you layer it with that dark Daffodil Delight, it changes that color. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. This orange can go clear up in here. I'm going to show you a little thing that I do. So what do you think so far? If you want some darker spots down here, that's when you're going to come in with that dark peach pie. Again, I like to just dot it on, okay? It doesn't have to be perfect. I think this is turning out just a tad darker than the other one. That's okay. You can come back in with the dark daffodil or the light, okay? So I'm going to come in with the light. And I'm going to go over all of that again. And I'm going to actually do another layer of green too. So I'm just going over this with that light to try to smooth out that edge and create a little bit of a transition. This is the dark Daffodil Delight. So you can just keep adjusting your orange until it comes out how you like it. But remember, as you're adding a lot of layers of ink, see how much is bleeding through? So let it rest for a second and then come back to it. So I'm going to start back in here at the top where I really wanted that green. And I'm just adding lines back in. And I'm going to let it dry for a second. I might hit it with the yellow one more time, but I need to let it dry because my transition is not quite how I want it. But sometimes, see how it's bleeding into my flower? I'll show you how I'm going to fix that. Not a big deal. I'm going to move to this orange now. And for this one, excuse me, I am using the pumpkin pie. And again, I'm using that dotting method around some of the parts that I want darker. And this is where it kind of overlaps. So I want that to be a little dark right there. I'm going to do over here. And around my edge. Now I'm going to come in with the dark peach. And I'm going to go right over where I put that dark pumpkin pie. And then I'm going to use, you can use the light peach or you can use the light pumpkin. Let's see if I can. So depending on how light you want that orange to be, you can pick which color you want. And then I like to add a little bit of the green. Let me add in the dark. And then anything you feel like you need to adjust, just grab your colors and adjust where you want to. Maybe it needs to be a little more blended, or so there we have our little bit of variation. Now I'm going to come back over here to this orange. And I think, let me try. Come back in with that light peach color and add just a little more color in here. And you can see I kind of have some bleeding going here because I've really saturated this. I'm not even going to worry about it. So let me finish my stem here and my flowers, and then we'll vote on the background. What do you guys think? I'll look and see if there's anything else I feel like I need to adjust. Again, I'm sorry if I accidentally go out of the screen. Just let me know. I'm trying really hard to concentrate on that and make sure I don't leave you hanging. So see how this color is developing now that I added a few layers, and it looks like it's just transitioning as it ripens. So don't be afraid to play with it a little bit. Put your colors on, see what you like. You could even use the Lemon Lolly if you do not have Daffodil Delight, and the light pumpkin pie. So now for my little flowers here, Stampin' Up's paper has used a yellow flower. And in everything I've looked at, oranges actually have a white flower, or at least that's what it appears to me. So I'm going to use the dark Lemon Lolly in the middle, like this, and I'm going to put a little bit on these buds toward the bottom. You can go up as high as you like. You can make it dark if you want. Thank you, Joan. I love these. I've really had a lot of fun coloring these. So now I'm using the light Lemon Lolly, and I'm just coloring in my flower. Remember, I'm not worried about those parts that bled, and I'm going to show you why here in a minute. So I didn't do a lot of blending on these blossoms. I just kind of let them kind of melt into the background and my oranges be the center stage here. So what I'm doing with this light Lemon Lolly is I'm taking that orange color that bled over into my flower and I'm pushing it back into that orange. Same here. So I'm going to color this, and then I'm putting my marker down and pushing and lifting. And it will go back where I wanted it to be. You can also use the color lifter to push that color through and then color on your yellow. But I find that this works pretty well. To push that color back where I wanted it. And I'm using the color lifter on the ends of my flowers anyways. Yeah, I thought so too, Jenny. At all the pictures I looked at, they really had white flowers, but our designer series paper kind of has a yellow, like a Lemon Lolly tone. So this I kind of copied, but I do use this color lifter to kind of push some of the color through so it's not a real dark yellow. So I'm going to let this wait. I'm going to let it rest for a second. See how it pushed that color? You can really tell on the back where I took that color and I used it to help me move the color back. Now that doesn't work real well on the edges, but you can use your color lifter to use small strokes and push them back. I mean, it did spread a little bit. Now you can go back and really adjust some of these dark areas. I'll show you how I did that in a minute. First, I'm going to finish my flowers. So I'm just taking my color lifter and I'm going over the edge just a little bit where that light Lemon Lolly is. I kind of want that flower just to be a real light yellow. And this is how you kind of get that. Is you put your color on and then you push some of it through your paper. And if you want them to be the dark yellow, then leave them. Now you notice I didn't do any blending on those. Okay, so I'm going to leave that be for a minute. And I come in with my dark Mossy Meadow. And I'm going to kind of go over these areas, just really short strokes. I'm just trying to barely touch the paper where things overlap. Now you could, I meant to grab my watercolor pencils. You could do this. I think I got it on my flower. That's okay. You could do this with a watercolor pencil, like a gray, or I think we might even have a Mossy Meadow pencil. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at my pencils for a while. But I'm just kind of going over the edge where things overlap. Where my green is, I should say. And you can blend this out. I got up on my orange just a tad. That's okay. I'm going to use this color to push that back. Got a little heavy hand there. But I'm not too worried about orange being on, or green being on my orange because, well, this one's ripening. So I'm going to let that sit for a minute. And then I like to go back in with the dark and just try to make sure none of these lines are too heavy. So I want them to blend a little bit. That got a little dark over there. That's okay. But once it kind of spreads a little bit, you can't really tell. So I'm just going around trying to add in just some dark lines that help pop those things that are layered. Hopefully that makes sense. I want this to blend out a little bit. And of course, I'm trying to do it quickly, so it doesn't always work exactly how I want it when I'm trying to do it quickly. Push that green back where I want it. And you can do the same thing where the oranges touch. So if you want this to be a little darker, you're just going to kind of go along that line. And add in, back in that darkness. And then I like to just blend it out just a tad, so it doesn't look like this harsh line. I think I'm going to come back in over here. Okay. What do you guys think? So I tried to hit on very different colors and blend them together. And this one has three. It has an orange color, a yellow color, and a green color. And I want those kind of to melt together. And again, you can adjust it more if you want. Let me pull in this light daffodil. And this is probably my hardest thing to do, is to just stop coloring. It's great, right? Thank you so much, Joan. So now we have a choice to make. So I've used all my colors. I have the ivory that my original background was the ivory. And I had this piece of designer series paper, which was this one right here. Okay. But we have a choice to make. So, we can choose to do the same color background, and I just liked the subtleness of it. It felt very soft. And we can do the exact same card. And you'll notice I stamped my greeting right on this layer. I added an extra layer, but originally my plan was a 1-layer card because our coloring is doing all the work. We want it to be center stage. So I do have Night of Navy for my base here. And this is just 5.5 by 8.5. So I know I'm really close to the camera, but here's my card. So we can add this in. This has a little bit brighter blue with the Night of Navy. And it just kind of peeks from behind. Just adds a little splash. And the blues and the orange colors complement each other. So that is why I picked Night of Navy cardstock, because it helps my oranges kind of pop off my card. So Stampin' Up! Has graciously given us a resource in our catalog, which I've done a lot of research and looked these things up for years. But on page 132, we have the color theory, and it tells you about monochromatic, complementary, and all the different types of color combos that you can do. And so you'll notice blue is on the opposite side of the color wheel from the oranges. So those are complementary. And that's why I picked that color. So we could pick this tile pattern. This had more boho blue and the misty moonlight. And I'm not even sure that's Night of Navy, but it's dark enough that even if it is misty moonlight, it coordinates well. This has some balmy blue. It still has a little bit of that boho blue, but it's a little brighter pattern. Or we could do something where we just put oranges on there. See how they've used, this is Lemon Lolly in the paper. We could do the oranges. Now, all the oranges don't show up. We could turn it this way. But I feel like that kind of competes with my oranges. So, what do you guys think? Oh, that's a big pattern on that side. I don't know how that would look. I guess that could be a possibility too. That's the very large tile pattern. So it just has a bunch of blue when you cover it up. You don't really see the designs in it. Ooh, you cut yours out and laminated it? Oh, well, I guess I never thought, I mean, I've thought of it, but Stampin' Up! Is going to try to come out with a color wheel. I'm not exactly sure when, but it's going to be a little bit different than that color wheel that's in the catalog. Okay, are you guys ready to make a couple decisions? So we need to pick which one of these we want to go in the background. And I'm thinking I really don't like this one, but I will leave it up to you guys. So we can choose the original one that I used, or we can pick one of the other two. So we need to pick one of the papers to go on the bottom of our card. And then we need to choose, do we want that background to be the ivory, or would you like to try a blue? Let me know your thoughts. We're voting right now. So let's do paper 1, 2, or 3. So 1, 2, or 3. Let's see. So Vicki, you're saying for out of the box, you would use green on your background? I'm just trying to make sure I understand. If I use the light old olive on my background, I think it could work, but that is a lot of green. So I would probably stamp a test image and test it before I, like just maybe the tops of the leaves before I did the green, just to see if I felt like it wasn't overwhelming. Oh, I thought you meant the color layer. Green for a layer. Oh, for the I get you now. Okay, I'm following you now. I thought you meant for the background color. This could be green. And the reason why I didn't really choose green, I chose this because it has the oranges on it and the leaves. But the whole reason why I personally did not choose green is because I want the complementary color of the blue for the oranges. That's why I picked it here, because I felt like it just helped the oranges be the center of attention. But yes, this package, I don't think it has any old olive, but you could certainly pick an old olive like we did. It wouldn't be old olive. We have Mossy Meadow in the neutrals. That's the paper pack I have for the family designer series paper packs. And I showed that, I think, one other time when I was doing this paper, how you can mix and match those stripes and the circle patterns. But if you're using Night of Navy base, that really dark green might kind of get lost. But you certainly could try those things. I do not want you to be deterred from trying anything, whatever you have in your craft room. Just like I cut these 3 pieces so that any of them could fit on this card. Don't be afraid to test them out and see if you like them. So, even if you think, oh, I might like this because it brings in some of that orange and yellow. This isn't there's not a wrong answer. So I want to make sure that you are testing out whatever you have. So I think I have a tie here. I do. Okay, we have a tie between these two. Is there any tiebreakers watching that want to break the tie here? So these are the 2 that we're down to. So now we have to pick the color that would go behind our oranges. So my original, I think you guys can you guys still see? My original used the ivory Stampin' Blends. And like I said, I love that look, but we could do a blue. Now, depending on which one of these we choose, I would either pick the light Balmy Blue or the light Boho Blue. But I will tell you, the light Boho Blue is dark. It's very dark, in my opinion. I think you could still probably use Balmy Blue, even if you used this one. It would just introduce a blue that's not in the, well, no. Is that Balmy Blue? That little tiny dot? I guess it could work. Anyone? Anyone? Joan, you're changing to 2. Okay, we'll go with it. It is different, and maybe it would be nice to see the different pattern. So now we have to pick what we want. And you can go all the way to the edge of your card, or you can leave a little space. I tend to leave a little space. That's just a personal preference of mine. Feel free to change that if you're copying my card. I'm not going to stamp my hello until the very end. So we need to vote. Let me grab my other markers. Let's make 2 choices here. Do we want to try? I have light, balmy blue, or ivory. So just put B or I. B for the balmy blue, I for ivory. Boho blue, I think, would look really gorgeous, but it is a darker blue. So it might not be one that you're comfortable with creating a background. A sample of the blue. You mean the color-wise? Let me pull out my Stampin' Blends charts here. So this is the balmy blue right here. And the ivory is this color. So I've blended it out a little bit on this background with my color lifter. So let me see if I can find a scrap piece here real quick. Does that help, Linda? Yeah, I do think the blue would tend to kind of look like there's sky behind it. But I do want to challenge you to kind of use other color. Okay, I see a vote. I think Vicky voted for ivory. Okay, I think I have a tie again. Okay. Somebody. Well, if I have to be the tiebreaker, if no one else votes, and it's okay if you're watching and you don't feel like contributing, and I get that. I understand. I don't want to make anyone nervous. I think Jenny said either blue. Yep, yellow would work. Let's see. Since I did this one in ivory, let's do this one in blue, just so you can see it. You know me, I like to change it up. So this is how I did my background. And a lot of times I use Pool Party for my background. I just like that soft color. So, you know, if that's what you have, use it. You don't have to use the Designer Series paper. You could just put it onto your cardstock. So I'm just going around and I'm coloring those. And then this, I'm just doing lines. You can do circles, you can do whatever you're comfortable with. You can do it. Oh, I want to put my hello there, so I'm gonna, or maybe I'll change the location of the greeting. So I'm just doing lines away from my image. And as you continually go over any of your light colors, they're going to get a little darker. You're probably saying, oh my gosh, it's ruined. I promise this is going to come together. And I like to make the edge very random. I don't like it all to end at the exact same spot on every one. Okay, so and I'm just going around my image. You can do circles, you can do lines. I like to do like a crosshatch. So whatever you like to do. I try to go away from my image and then lift up. Sometimes I go toward it. It just kind of depends on what I feel comfortable with. Sometimes I scribble. So just try to have fun with the process. Sorry. So you can see the edge looks very organic. It's random, it's kind of messy. If you don't like that real messy, you can come in and you can do circles and kind of smooth your edge. Like this. I do it lots of different ways. Sometimes I play with it quite a bit before I'm happy. So don't be afraid to adjust things. And you're going to see how I'm going to kind of smooth those things out. Oh, thank you, Joan. Have a great weekend. Okay, so it's fairly not dark. It's a light blue, but I want it to kind of fade out a little bit. So on this one, it goes away and it kind of just has the edge kind of lightens. So what I do, and I am going to use the end that kind of presses through a little bit more, I am just going around my edge with my color lifter and I'm doing circles. And I'm doing it pretty much everywhere that I put the blue. Now this pushes a lot through. This is just the alcohol marker solution with no color suspended in it. So this end is going to put a lot on there. It's going to push through a lot. And you might not like that texture, so you can use the other end. I just prefer to do this quickly. So I'm just going over that edge in a circle pattern. And you can do lines, you can do it however you like and what you're comfortable with. And you're going to see as it kind of develops a little bit, it can soften that edge. It's not going to make it blend into the white. It's just going to soften it so it looks like it just kind of fades and it doesn't have a harsh line. So I'm just going to let that be for a second. And you can kind of see it'll leave little, looks like it's kind of watermarked or you've dropped water on it. I did not do it in here. I just did it on the edge. And there's our blue. So there's the blue versus the ivory. And it has a very different look. So I'm going to let this sit for a minute. And I'm going to go ahead and I just have a plain sheet for the inside. On this one, I stamped a flower. I'm just going to leave this one white because we've been here for a while today. Now I know I'm pulled clear all the way down, so I'm going to move my camera back up, hopefully fairly smooth, so that we can finish our card. Yeah, it's definitely, you know, it gives a different feeling to the card, but I really hadn't thought of sunset. I was just thinking of a soft color. So I'm glad you said that, Vicki, because I just thought ivory might go best and not really compete with my oranges. So I'm just going to glue my inside piece, if I can get my glue to work here. And this is just a 5" by 3 3/4 inch of basic white. So you could add, if you have a strip of your Design a Series paper left, you could add that on the inside. You could stamp the orange or the citrus, the single citrus. Excuse me. This piece. And my greeting, the hello, is from the Citrus Blossom stamp set, and I just have it stamped in the Night of Navy. So I'm going to adhere this down at the bottom. I think it's a little long. We'll trim that off. I guess it'll work. Okay. Oops. So now, see how that's kind of come together? And if you want it lighter, you can just keep going over it as much as you like. I just like to use kind of a random, I like the background to just kind of end in different places. You could also use tape and make it a square or a rectangle if you wanted it to be exact and have an end. Sorry, I dropped the lid to my glue. So I had to bend down and get that. So I'm going to stamp this hello, and then our card is complete. Ooh, that's a good idea, Vicki. So if you're doing a set of cards, you could do all the backgrounds kind of a different color. So this one, I stamped my hello down here, but I kind of colored further than I anticipated. So I'm trying to think if I want it somewhere else. So if you adjust this at all, let it dry. Ooh, yes, Linda, you definitely could use blending brushes. I think it might be kind of hard to mask it, but you could certainly try to use blending brushes on this. You could also use the watercolor pencils, or whatever coloring tools you have in your, in your collection. You could also use the water painters and the ink pads. It's just, if you use basic white, when you go to watercolor, there are hard lines where your colors stop. So if you don't mind that look, that I like that sometimes for different things. So you certainly could use other coloring tools. So I am just inking up that hello, and I'm not worried about if it's straight. I'm just stamping it. It's a handwritten hello. And I stamped it in Night of Navy. So let's see here. So yeah, I think you could try that, but that would be a lot of work to use blending brushes. Unless you just used, let me see, that I have a small one somewhere. Let's see. Trying to remember where I put my blending brushes. This is what happens when you clean. So here's one of our small blending brushes. You could blend on this, but you would have to create masks for your flowers and your leaves, which might be, it might be a lot of work. I don't know. If you try it, let me know how that turned out, because I'm curious. Or you could just stamp it and kind of blend the colors a little bit and not worry about being in the lines. Thank you. I really liked how this turned out. I like them both. And I think if you used, if you left these white and maybe used the lemon lolly for the background, that could be nice. Because I didn't do a no line, those lines still help separate it from the background. So I do like to let Night of Navy dry for just a second before I touch it, because it's a very dark ink and they can take just a few seconds to dry, longer than some of the other ones. Now, I did use dimensionals on the back, and I used quite a bit. I think this is a pack from a paper pumpkin. Just because all of these little curves and the detail, I liked having mine have quite a few. So you might not want to do this many, completely up to you. Or if you have the square foam, that might be better. And then I'm going to cut some strips for the middle. Okay. And as soon as I get all these little pieces off, we are ready to complete our card. So thank you all for hanging out for me. Oh, I'm sorry, Linda. I thought you meant for the oranges. I apologize. I feel like I'm misunderstanding quite a bit today, and I apologize for that. Yes, for the background. You mean to sponge the background? Absolutely. I thought you meant the oranges in the image in general. But yes, this orange image does have a die, and it cuts very nicely. So you could create a mask And then just, you typically when you create a mask, you trim very closely to the image, but once you die cut it, you could come in and just trim really closely around this edge and not worry about this right here. Or you can use the X-Acto knife tool and cut that out. That fits on your take a pick tool, but you could do that. So I'm sorry, yes, you absolutely could do that. I know, Jenny, what is wrong with me? I've misunderstood several times this morning, so I apologize. That's why I ask what you, what you mean sometimes, because it's me, my mind. Okay, I'm just trying to get this on even and then press it on. So there we have our card. Thank you all for joining me today. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial of how I colored my citrus blends. And here's all my other ones that I did. You'll see I had lots of variations. These first three, I didn't quite do the leaf technique on, and I didn't color my flowers all the way. That's okay. This one, I used a ton of Cajun Craze, and so it came out really dark. But you know what? Depending on how you're making this card or if you're layering these pieces, this could work really perfect for something that's, you know, kind of shadowed and below the other oranges. So I really like all of these, and I like how you can really change up the colors a little bit and create some different looks. Jenny, I will have to agree. I haven't had enough coffee. Well, please give me a heart on my video if you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know if you've grabbed this bundle in the sale. So bundles are 10% off the price if you buy the 2 individual products. When they bundle them, you get 10%. So right now during the sale, you get an additional 10%. So that's 20% off the original price of the 2 items in the bundle. But let me know. I will be playing with this image quite a bit. I really, really like coloring it. And I've had a lot of fun learning this leaf technique. I learned at Kit and Clouder, I believe. So Alice over there does really great tutorials. She has a free one on a leaf. I actually have her class, the full class, but she did a free leaf tutorial. And so I tried to use some of her tips on my leaves, and that's where I learned from. So everyone have a beautiful weekend. If you need to grab any of those bundles that are on sale, you can head over to my online store at bethroy.stampinup.net. And if you have any questions, just give me a shout out. Let me know. I'd be happy to help. So thank you all. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you soon. Bye.